I'm Rick Lewis with Phenon Hoops, and in today's Coaches Corner, we're going to take a little detour here and reverse roles. Um, I have Langston Wertz from the Charlotte Observer. Usually it's Langston doing talking preps and doing the asking the questions, and we're doing the answering, but we're going to reverse roles today, Langston. But thank you for coming on.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to give you the viewers, a little background information about you as a person, as a journalist. You grew up in a lot of different states. You were born in South Dakota. You moved around. You lived in
Hmm.
Ohio, Nebraska, New York City. You moved to Charlotte. And you attended West Charlotte High School. You graduated in 1984. And then once you
Hmm.
graduated from high school, you enrolled at UNC for journalism. Um,
Hmm.
when you went into UNC, did you know going in what you wanted to do with your life?
No, man, I had no idea. My mom wanted me to go to school in Atlanta, and I just didn't want to go. She wanted me to go to HBCU. I just didn't want to go. All my friends were going to Chapel Hill, so I just went to Chapel Hill. And basically because my buddies were going, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. My dad wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer, so I started on that track. And I was taking English class one day, and one of my classmates said, "You're a really good writer. You should try out for the student newspaper." So I go to try out for the student newspaper, and the editor of the Daily Tar Heel was Scott Fowler, who is now the
Right.
columnist at the Charlotte Observer. Scott told me to go watch any type of game that I liked and write a story about it. And there were probably a couple hundred people applying for a couple of jobs in the sports department there. I went and watched a women's basketball game on television. I wrote about it, and they gave me the job. And man, once I got behind that computer, it was a big old thick computer, big heavy old style computer. Had a green screen, and once I got behind it, I just fell in love. And I said, "This is what I want to do." And this was my sophomore year, towards the end of it, and ever since then, I've been doing journalism.
Well, you graduated from Carolina in 1988, and then your first job was working for the Gaston Observer, which was a subsidiary
Mm-hmm.
of the Charlotte Observer. And
That's
since
right.
that time, you've gone from Gaston Observer to the Charlotte Observer. So you have spent 32 years with the Charlotte Observer.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to go into journalism?
Like I said, I just fell in love with writing. I just loved writing and going to games. It almost felt like I wasn't getting paid. I mean, I wasn't working. It still feels like that, Rick. I feel like I do a job almost that I would do for free. Don't tell my bosses that. I mean, I just really love writing and talking to people. And the job's always different. It's not like going to a factory every day. We do the same thing every day. Every day is a little different. I work at my own pace. I decide what I'm going to write about. I've been working from home since the '90s. It's something I've gotten used to, something I enjoy, and something I hope to keep doing.
In the past 32 years, what do you think the biggest change is in the as a sports journalist for the Charlotte Observer?
The biggest change is just the newspaper business itself. When I started, it was like going to work at the post office. Another industry is in trouble. It was just such a big, solid industry. I'll give you an example. I don't remember the kid's name, but when I started, there was some really hot shot basketball player out west. He was like a LeBron James type of player. This is 90, 91. And I had just really started working downtown at the main paper. And I was telling my boss about him. I said, "Why don't you go write about him? Just out of the blue, just." And I said, "When? Go tomorrow." And in the paper, we had our own travel agency, we had our own bank, we had our own store, we had our nurse. Everything was all encapsulated. People don't even believe it now. That's the biggest difference, is how much the industry has changed from being so strong and so powerful to where we are now. It's just totally different. Everything's internet based and sell subscriptions and things like that. And the advertising used to support us is gone.
What's the toughest part of your job today?
The toughest part right this minute is dealing with the coronavirus. I mean, everything is disrupted sports altogether. I'm a sports writer, and there's no sports to cover, so that's definitely tough. Is wondering when sports are going to come back, and what are you going to do? Between then, a lot of us have been doing a lot of news stories now. I've done more news stories in the last last 2 or 3 weeks than I've done in years, and that's different, and it's fine, but I like writing about games and people, and I hope to get back to that. That's definitely the toughest part right this minute. But I think in general, the toughest part is the internet, and just how much the internet has changed how we cover stuff and the access people get. Anybody now can become a blogger and put information out. And I think that that has led to a distrust of media, to be honest with you, because there's just so many people who don't really understand the business, know what they're doing, just go out and put stuff out. And it's not really fact-based. They're just watching things and writing about what they watch. And I think that's been the biggest change overall in the industry.
Well, let's talk about something a little more personal. Let's go back to 2016, Providence Day. That team had to have a special meeting for you. Your son Trey played on that team, but that team was absolutely loaded. You had Grant Williams, who went to Tennessee, now with the Boston Celtics. You had Devon Dotson, who is now with Kansas, is going to now be in the NBA. Your son Trey, who went to Santa Clara, who had 2 great years at Santa Clara, and now is at Notre Dame. And then you also had Isaac Johnson, who had a superb career at Appalachian State, and Josh Howard, who went to Brown. Do you think this is one of the best high school teams that you've seen in the Charlotte area?
Yes. I couldn't say it, Rick, when I was covering them. I mean, I had to kind of temper down my emotions and temper down my opinion, because people would just say, well, your son played on that team. His best friend, Devon, played on that team. So naturally, you're going to say that's the team. The 2 best teams I've ever seen since I've been here, West Charlotte 99 with Jason Parker and that Providence Day team. I think the Providence Day team beats them because they're just overall, they're just a little deeper. I mean, all 5 of those guys played D1, and I think all of them started their first year and played really well. The Providence Day team, the guard play was so good. The interior play was so good. There just wasn't a weakness. It was just, there was no way to really kind of slow them down. And the level of competition in North Carolina that year was higher than any other year I've seen since I've been here. The team they beat in the championship game, High Point Christian, was a preseason top 10 team nationally. They were up there being compared with the Mount Birds of the world when the season started. They had Bam Adebayo, who became a all-star for Miami, first-round pick. I think he went 13-14, right outside the lottery maybe. And they had, I think, 9 other Division I players. Jalen Cone played on that team. It's now at Virginia Tech. They were just loaded. And, High Point Wesleyan was loaded. Greensboro Day was loaded. And, that team started out the season playing Jervent. They played Oak Hill one day, Mountain Mission the next day, and just played an incredibly hard schedule and had a great run, ended up going to the Dix Nationals. I think those 2 teams are the 2 best I've ever seen. If I had to pick one to win a game, I would probably pick that Providence State team.
Well, you already have one member off that team in the NBA in Grant Williams, and Devon Dotson is going to be the second one. There's another young man who I really believe this. I've been telling you this for some time. There's another young man off that team that has a chance to play at the next level, and that's Trey Wertz. He's 6'5", has a 6'8", 6'9" wingspan. I think he just continues to get better and better. But let me ask you this, Langston. How difficult was it to cover the Providence Day team that year? No matter what you did, and you tried to be as, fair, honest. How difficult was it to cover Providence Day that year because of Trey being on that team?
Rick, that was probably the most difficult thing I've ever done since I've been here, is to cover that team or not cover that team, because no matter, people were sticking cameras in my face all during that year, wanting me to talk about, and all those years, wanted me to talk about Providence Day and talk about my son. And I just tried as hard as I could to refrain from it. I don't know if it was right or wrong. I just felt like that was the right thing to do at the time. Trey's not in high school anymore, and that team is gone. So I feel, I've been doing a lot of interviews now that I've not done before. It was very hard during that period to cover them. It was very fun to watch them. I just had to, I was kind of sit there like a zombie. I wouldn't say anything, during the game, because Trey's freshman year, a parent from a rival team took pictures of me in the stands. I was like cheering, Trey was in some big baskets. It's kind of his first couple of games playing high school ball. I was excited. And she actually reported me to my boss saying I was biased. I'm like, I'm not here working. I'm just here as a parent covering my kid. And so ever since then, I just kind of became zombie-like. It's kind of like Del Curry when he was watching Stephen play in the finals. I just kind of sat there and would watch. But as he went to college, I kind of allowed myself, with the few times I was out in California, to loosen up and watch him. In college, you've always told me enjoy it. It goes by fast. I'm trying to do that. But that was a great time. He had a great high school experience. I wish all the kids out in your audience could have the experience that Trey had in high school, playing in the Dix Nationals, winning the state championship, going to China, playing all the tournaments they played in. They played in almost every big-time high school tournament you can think of. And all the players I see on television now, I saw them play against Trey in high school.
Right. Well, that team was special. You know, I think the team went 32-4. They started off the
Yeah.
season 0-2.
Mhm.
By Grant Williams' request, you know, he wanted to play Oak Hill the opening night, and
Yeah,
the
he
next
did.
night you
Yeah, he did.
played Mountain Mission and was 0-2. But I think those are the type of games that really prepared that team down the road. The other regular season loss was to a team out of the Chick-fil-A, and I think you guys were up by
Yeah,
3
Green
points.
Forest. That dude walked, man. At the end of the game, he walked, and we beat them. We beat them. But yeah, that was a great game. They were huge. They had like two or three 7-footers, Green Forest, and the kid went to Georgia Tech, and they were really, really good.
Well, in high school, I never thought Trey got all the recognition he deserved. Now, part of it was because they played such a team structure at Providence
Hmm.
Day, but the main two guys that everybody was talking about was Grant Williams and Devon Dotson. And you know,
Hmm.
Trey went out to Santa Clara, had 2 great years, and he decided to put his name into the transfer portal. When he did that, were you surprised at the amount of national interest that he got? Because you had schools like Carolina, Arizona, Stanford, Ohio
Hmm.
State, Butler, Notre Dame. The list goes on and on that was interested in his service as a player.
Yes and no, Rick, because he had a good bit of Power Five interest coming out of high school. It's just he just didn't get the ones that he kind of wanted the most. And so, and we met Justin Gainey, who was the assistant coach at Santa Clara at the time. Justin had played for Herb Sendek, Santa Clara's head coach, when he was in college at NC State, and Herb was a coach at NC State. And we just kind of fell in love with Justin and the vision they had at Santa Clara to kind of put them back on the map. They hadn't been to the tournaments, and Steve Nash was there, and Kurt Rambis and all those guys. And it just seemed like a good move. My wife was from that area. We had a lot of family out there, and Trey kind of felt like he'd go out there and get a fresh start. I think Trey's problem has always been he kind of would take a back seat willingly and let other people kind of do. And in high school, that worked against him because he had two alpha dogs and Grant and Devon. It would, if you took a step back, they're going to take a step forward. And they were all family. They loved each other and it worked. But I mean, that's always kind of what happens with Trey sometimes, even at AAU, he'll kind of defer a little bit. And so I've always trying to encourage him to step forward and be a leader. Like if Trey's in a picture after a championship game, he's always in the back. He's never in the front. And so we always try to get him to come out of his shell a little bit. And I think going to Santa Clara those 2 years has helped him do that because he had to kind of be more of a leader of the team and push forward. I think that's really been healthy. And as he moves on to Notre Dame, I think you'll see a different player than what you used to see.
Well, Trey was always a very humble person, and I can always go back to a time when I used to do my drills and skills camp at North Met. I remember
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you
yeah.
brought him up there, and the thing that really amazed me about Trey when we were doing a drill, Trey would listen and do the drill, and then afterwards he would come up to me and go, "Coach, did I do it right?" You know, he was like a sponge. He absorbed everything that
Yeah,
that we gave him as far as instruction. And at that point in time, I said, Langston, he's going to be special. I said, he's going
he
to be
did.
special. And you said, how do you know? I go, I just see the determination, the willingness that he wants to get better. And I said, that's half the battle. When Trey had the final seven, and it was a great list of schools, but when he picked Notre Dame, what went through your mind?
What went through my mind was he made a great choice after doing a heck of a lot of research. I mean, he looked at so much film on. It was really when he got down to four, but he did so much research. He did this spreadsheet, Rick, where he had 6 or 7 different categories, and he would go through them. And he ranked all the finalists on those categories, and Notre Dame just kept coming 1 or 2. And I think, I was walking around the house with my Carolina shirts trying to like throw subtle hints, but. And all my friends you got to go to Carolina. You went to Carolina. You got to go to Carolina. And but he just really looked at it, took the emotion out of it, and tried to make the best decision for him. And I thought that was really mature for a 20-year-old kid to be able to do that. And on his list, Notre Dame just kept coming up 1 or 2 in these things. It was kind of obvious when he showed my wife Whitney and myself the list, what he was going to do. And it was totally his decision. It was his decision to transfer. It had nothing to do with that. It was his decision to pick a school. It had nothing to do with that. This was all on him. And I just, I support him. I think, he made a really good decision. I mean, like I told him, I said, 20 years from now, people ask you where you got your MBA from. You say Notre Dame. Oh, okay, you got Notre Dame. It's not like it's a bad school. So he has a national alumni base behind him now. I think that's really cool.
Well, when you told me that he picked Notre Dame and he did it for, he thought was the best reason for him, I'm sure the hardest thing he had was you went to Carolina and you was a Carolina fan. So I'm sure that, like you said, he had to take the emotion part of it because if
Yes.
I was in Vegas, I would have bet the farm he was going to Carolina.
Everybody did. Yeah, it was tough, Rick. It was a really tough time. He really grew up loving Carolina. I mean, yeah, and I don't know if it was because I was always watching the Carolina games, when I wasn't working, and he was there watching them with me. But he grew up a Carolina fan, really pulling love in Carolina. Took a visit up there sophomore year. They recruited him for a little bit, Roy and Coach May and those guys. And I think when he started talking to Coach Robinson, Coach Williams this time, I could see that it was stirring emotions in him. But then he kind of sat back and said, I need to make the best decision for me. And I just think the vision that Coach Bray and Notre Dame laid out was amazing. I mean, he had a lot of really good choices. I mean, the Butler coaches, the Butler staff did a wonderful job recruiting. The Ohio State staff did a wonderful job. I mean, all of the staff did a really, really good job. It impressed me so much they were able to do so well during the pandemic where we couldn't visit, and they use Zoom like we're on now, and all types of methods to kind of show us the campuses and show us a lot of the gyms, and we met the trainers and the coaches. It was really cool how they did all that, and I was just really thankful that we were able to make a really good decision based on some really solid facts, which is what he did. So I'm just really proud of him, Rick. I'm proud of him that he's turned out to be the man he is. I'm proud of him that he was so attentive to detail in his decision, and I just hope I just want him to go to school, have a great experience to get those degrees we talked about.
Well, Langston, academics have always been a major part of the Wertz family. Talk about Trey, the student athlete, not the basketball player.
Wow, Trey's always been a really good student. My wife probably has more to do with that than me. She's really been I was always kind of the athletic pusher person, taking them to you and Coach Dwayne Lewis. Shout out to Dwayne Lewis for letting me come up to North Macon all those Sundays and sit in this room and watch Panthers games. So I had Trey worked out with you and Tyler and the guys. But she was always more the academic pusher, and she just really made sure he had a solid base. And Trey just is naturally inquisitive, and he's always been really smart. And he works hard. He works hard in basketball. He works hard in academics. I mean, these are Providence Davis. It's not an easy school. He'd be up 12:30, 1 o'clock at night after a basketball game. I can see that light under his door. He's still up working. So he's always been a hard worker. He's a 3.89 student in high school. He's like a 3.1 or 2 now in college. And it's not easy being a full-time basketball player, take a business. So I'm really proud of, like I said, of the man he's become, a student. He's setting a good example, I hope, for his brother, who's also going to be a pretty decent basketball player. And hopefully we can, do this all again.
Do it all over again.
Yeah.
Langston, you've covered a lot of games in the 32 years. You've been in a lot of gyms, a lot of games, and you've gone through it as a parent with Trey and now the younger son coming along. What advice would you give parents and players as they go through this journey? Is the best advice for them to be successful and to achieve their goals?
I would tell parents to relax. I think too often, and I'm just as guilty as anybody else, we push too hard because we want it so badly for our kids. And I think these things have a way of working themselves out. I think, you got to work hard. You got to put the time in. You got to be a good student, because you can't, the lower your grade point average, the fewer the schools that can recruit you. And that's a fact. So you have to do all that stuff, but I think you can't push so hard. I think you have to kind of sit back and let it all work out, and don't get caught up into, I got to go to every single camp or every single clinic or work out with every single trainer. Kind of pick one or two, and that's what you do. I think camps are important. I think you need to go to Phenom Top 80 or Phenom 150. I think you need to go to those things, but I think you don't need to go to 20 of them all over the place. I think you kind of need to establish relationships, because you go crazy because there's something going on every week that you can go to. And what I've tried to do is pick one or two things. This is what we're going to do with our kids, and try to pick a good school for them to go to. And everybody isn't fortunate enough to be able to pick a school. I understand that sometimes you have to go to a school that you want to go to. But we picked Providence Day because we thought that was going to be a good place for Trey to get a great education be with who I think is the best coach for me in Charlotte and Bryant Field, and then get a great academic experience. Trey went to college. College wasn't as hard because he was so well prepared. Grant Williams will tell you the same thing. He went to Tennessee. Tennessee wasn't so hard because he was well prepared. And Trey made some friends for life. I mean, Trey, Grant, and Devon, they're all like super, super close, talk almost every day. Devon and Trey play video games every night, all into the night. I have to go make them turn off the television. So, but the advice, Rick, I would just say be patient with your kids and let them be kids a little bit. You know, don't push so hard. You know, you do have to push a little bit, but don't push so hard.
Well, I often told you along the way, and I tell this to a lot of parents, I always say, hey, sit back and enjoy it. It's going to go by way too fast. Let it happen organically. And, you know, and I wrote an article. If I only knew then what I know now, I would have enjoyed it a whole lot more as a parent. And, you know, in my situation, both my boys have graduated. Now they're in college coaching. But I miss those days. I wish I would have enjoyed it just a little bit more. And that's my advice to parents. Just sit back and enjoy it. Let it happen organically. Make sure they're good student athletes, because the better your grades are, the better opportunities you're going to have a scholarship at the end of the day. Let's put your magician hat on real quick, Langston. If you had a magic wand, what are three things you would change in the high school game today?
Shot clock, number one. Man, we got to have a shot clock. I think the shot clock makes the game better. I hear the people who say that, you know, in girls basketball, shot clock will hurt. I think that I remember when they were putting the three-point line in North Carolina, and everybody said, oh, it's going to kill the high school game. And now everybody's adjusted high school game. I remember we didn't have clocks on the football field. They would do the clock on the referee's watch. And they said it was too expensive to do, and everybody did it. I remember we played slow pitch softball, and college went to fast pitch, and our girls weren't being recruited at the same rate, so we went to fast pitch. And everybody wasn't being recruited, but we went to fast pitch anyway. I think shot clock is kind of the same thing. I think that there's going to be initial pain to it, financially, just getting used to it. But I think once we do it, I think people will see this better for the game. It's the way the game is played everywhere else, college, internationally, professionally. It all has a shot clock. It makes the game better. It creates incredible in-game situations. A lot of times, you know, teams want to hold that ball down the stretch, and they ended up turning over, kicking off the foot. Sometimes when you keep running your offense, that lead actually grow, or it can sometimes give a team trailing a chance to catch up. I think the shot clock is part of part of the way we play basketball, and the thing we should play it in high school. Two, I think, Rick, to be honest, I think we need to look at ways to increase fans at games and not push fans away from games. And by that, I mean, let's have the games that fans want to see.
Right.
You know, they want to see, I'm not talking about Mary, if they want to see Charlotte Latin play Providence, allow that to happen. CMS right now won't allow private schools to play public schools. We allow that stuff to happen. I think, you know, some of the rules about the season has to end right after state championship. Maybe we need to stop that, because you can make a lot of money if you could have a tournament where you can have all the state champions play each other. I've heard you advocate for such a thing. Or if you can take the South Carolina and North Carolina state champions and play against each other. Or if you got a dormant that qualifies for the Dicks in North Carolina, let them go play. And, you know, if Mars Park's girls qualify for the Dicks Nationals, that's a great experience. I've been there, Rick. That's a great experience. I mean, let them go play. I mean, they treat you like a king or a queen. I mean, that's wonderful. So I think loosening those rules would go a long way. I don't think 10 or 12 basketball players not playing spring sports at the start of spring sports is going to kill a school. And I don't even know how many of them play spring sports anyway. I would say probably less than 10% play spring sports. So is that three? I think that, I don't know if I hit three. But
that's three. That's three good ones.
Yeah. Those are three things I would definitely change.
In the 32 years that you've been with the Observer, there's been a lot of players come through Charlotte.
Yeah.
Give me your first team, all Charlotte team, since you've been with the Observer.
You're gonna get me in trouble. Okay, so we're talking from November '88, guys. November '88 till in today's May of 2019. All right, guards, Devon and Ian Miller. Center, Jason Parker. Forwards, Antoine Jameson and Grant Williams. I'll beat any team in North Carolina. Line them up.
That's a pretty good one. And the thing about it is, there's a few that you left off that was pretty good too. You got Bobby Jones, Walter Davis. They might have been before.
No. That's before my time.
That's before your time.
I said 88.
Okay.
88.
You're
the other
right. You're right.
team.
Steph
Bobby
Curry.
Jones and Walter in the 70s.
What about Seth Curry?
Steph's a great high school player, but he wasn't at the level of the other two. Stephen became great after high school. But I'm
Right.
saying
Right.
for what they did in high school. If you're talking about all time what you did after school, my list would be different. But I'm talking about the list I just gave you is just what they did from 9th grade to 12th grade.
Right. And people don't remember, Jason Parker was an absolute stud in high school. He dominated.
Jason Parker's the best high school player to ever come through here, I think.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate he didn't make it out, but I mean he was rated the number 3 amateur in the world when he was in high school. I mean he was phenomenal. I had never seen anything like it. Oak Hill double teamed him the whole game, and so in Mount Zion when they were a powerhouse like that, they double teamed him the whole game. You just didn't see those teams do that when they played a regular high school team.
Yeah. Well, we're going to wind down. I have a few rapid fire questions, sort of like your 45-second shot clock. Favorite team growing up, Langston?
Any sport?
Any sport.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Pittsburgh Steelers. That was my dad's favorite team. Proudest moment as a sports journalist?
Proudest moment as a sports journalist. When I won my first writing award, it was my 3rd year. I won an AP award my 3rd year. I was really proud of that. I was like, man, I was in competition with some of the guys I grew up reading, and I won. So that was pretty cool.
All right, it's a tough one. Most memorable moment as a sports dad?
Oh, man, when Trey won the state. I mean, Trey had – I've never said this before publicly, but I've covered games for 32 years. And I've seen a lot of great performances. That's one of the best 5 I've ever seen. What he did in the state championship game, having to move over to point guard when Devon got in foul trouble against that team in that moment. And he had darn near triple-double, 26, 7 points. And it was, efficient as he normally is. And it was really good. And I was really proud because they won the biggest game that school's ever seen. And he played a really big part in it. So he'll tell you I got a little teary-eyed after the game. I don't think I did. I think I may have caught it before it came out.
Well, when I was speaking to Coach Brian Field, he mentioned that game, and he mentioned Trey almost had a triple-double.
He did.
And, Langston, Trey means a lot to me personally. I've known Trey since he was a little rugby rat, and coming up to, North Mech to the drills and skills camp. And I've always admired his work ethic. I think that's the thing that always impressed me the most is his work ethic and how much he wanted to learn and get better. And every time I saw him, he always took his game up another notch or two. And I know you're really, really proud. But I also want to say thank you because, Langston, I think, to me, you're one of the greatest at what you do. What you've done for the city of Charlotte, the way you cover sports across the board in the Charlotte metro area is unprecedented. And I think the people in this area are very, very lucky to have someone like you to cover sports for them because you do a tremendous job. You don't always get the credit that you deserve because, as you well know in this business, people will always want to find something to be wrong. But you've done a tremendous job covering every sport. You're a professional. You work as hard as anyone in the business. And I just want to say thank you for all you've done over the years.
Well, Rick, that's very, very nice of you to say. I do work really hard. Like I said when we started, I love what I do, and that makes it easy to work that hard. And I hope people appreciate it. And I do try to, take into account, when people are happy about something, they're not really going to say much. When people are upset about something, they're going to talk a lot. So a lot of the comments that you get are negative, but I always kind of try to remember that most people out there, when they don't say something, that means they're at least okay with it. And I just, I want to do the best job I can. I want to shine a light on these kids in Charlotte, especially the ones that don't get a light shine on them as much. And I hadn't done as good a job as that lately, and I made a promise to myself this spring I was going to do better, and then we don't have spring. But I always try to look out for little guy because I was that little guy that, nobody paid attention to. And then, in terms of Trey, like I said before, I'm just really proud of him. And, I always tell Trey, you got to run your race. I mean, you play with some really, really elite players, and maybe you're not at the same pace they are, but you can get to the same place. But you just got to run your race to get there. So I think that's what he's doing.
Well, thank you again, Langston, and best of luck. And hopefully we can see you back in the gym soon.
Yes, sir. I hope I see you back in the gym soon. That means we're back to life. So yeah, we need
absolutely. All right. Thank you.